I'd like to again call back in our speakers. Unfortunately, Sir John Neri had to leave, and Janina also had to leave early. So we're joined today by Miko and Mikael. And your questions, of course, will be sent to them so they can answer. But let me go to our first question. This was from an anonymous attendee. And I think this applies for both you, Miko, and Mikael. How do we most ethically, nakalagay niya ethically, engage with people who try to demoralize a logical and sound comment or argument? It was suggested that we should call out disinformation, but every time we do, totoo na someone will try to call us out in turn simply for giving a logical or well-researched opinion. So even sabi niya, even experts are being attacked with senseless and ad hominem comments. So how do we deal with them? And I guess related to this question is what is your opinion on cancel culture? Is it counterproductive? What are what are the specific reasons for canceling uh, others if there are? So si maybe Miko or Mikael. Mikael, naka-unmute ka na.
Ay, type ako. May isang interesanting tanong eh. Tapos tinatype ko yung mahabang-mahaba akong sagot. Siguro sagutin ko na live.
Sige.
Siguro dun sa tanong na paano, may banggit na pag hindi nakikinig sa logic, hindi nakikinig. At babalik ako dun sa kaninang binabanggit ko na hanapan ng espasyo ng commonality. Baka hindi debate muna o hindi yung logic mismo yung unang hakbang. It can be as simple as kumustahin mo eh. It can be as simple as mag-empathize ka at intindihin mo kung bakit niya nararamdaman niya, leading him or her to approach discourse with you from such a position. So yun yung maikling sagot ko ron. Hanapin yung commonality at hindi yung laging logic or issue based. Yun.
Sa akin naman, in my perspective, if I could just jump in, no, I think one important thing also that we should consider is let's try to start within our own networks. Kasi for sure, in our group of friends or relatives or families, for sure, marami pang spaces doon na welcome yung ganitong klaseng conversations. So it's one good thing to start there. And also, baka maganda rin to choose our battles. Kasi kapag nakakakita tayo ng mga responses na alam mong hindi nakikinig, sometimes perhaps it's better not to feed it at that particular time. I agree with the suggestion to really choose to find commonalities between yourself and who you're talking to. Kasi even us as fact checkers, the way we present our findings, the way we present our reports, that's also one consideration that we that we have. How will it be received by our audience, our readers? Kasi if you call it out na parang name and shame, of course it's not always that effective. So it's one way, it's a tricky thing that we all have to navigate, how best to be received by people who don't share your point of view or the things that you're saying. So
yeah. Actually, Miko, may tanong din ako from earlier. I want to bring it up now since nabanggit mo is, who actually uses or who visits those fact-checking sites? Are these people trying to just confirm something that they thought they knew as true? Or is it because they're really curious as to learn what is, the real origin story, the truth behind some issue? And why do we even need fact-checking sites in this, in this world? If there's the internet, if anyone can search for anything, I guess mas root issue is, are fact-checking sites going to be the reality from here on? No? Do we always need these fact-checking sites?
I think having these fact-checking sites is, I think right now it's important because while yes, everyone can simply Google, the thing is not everyone does. Not everyone has the time for it. Not everyone has enough siguro yung foundation, yung skills sa kanila to determine what is a credible site, what is alin yung mga types of sources that is halimbawa dubious, or for example ano yung tinatawag nating primary sources, yung first-hand resources that we should access. I think that's the role that fact checkers and journalists all should play in this time kasi ang daming information coming from different sides, different sources, and overwhelming siya for an ordinary citizen. So the fact checkers and journalists are there supposedly to give you a start, Like, this is some of the information that's out there. You can simply do more of your own research if you want to, but we're telling you, here's our findings. Like for us sa Vera Files, for example, when we publish a fact check article, all of our sources are there. We explain the methodology, we explain how we did our research, because we want the readers to do it for themselves. We want them to fact check us, kasi that's how you get them to incorporate it in their own habits. Na it's more than just seeing a headline or on your newsfeed and believing it, sharing it right away. It takes a lot of work to verify a particular information. So that's what we really try to do. Aside from producing fact check reports, we talk to different schools, different organizations, and try to give them the basic skills. Para kasi the thing is, disinformation spreads a lot faster. It multiplies more exponentially, and mas mahirap, mas matagal, mas matrabaho mag-produce ng isang fact check kaysa sa isang piece of disinformation. So we need more people, and the only thing that we could do that is if we encourage more of our readers to share that burden of looking harder, of doing more research before spreading something.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's something that's necessary. And I mean, hopefully becomes part of the way we do things. It's not just a separate site, but it becomes
Yeah.
integral to how we educate the public now to always fact check. No? Our next question actually is for Mikael. This is a question that's coming up from the community, and I think it is specifically addressed at you. But let me read the question first because it's medyo complex. No, first question is on cyber trolls and troll farms that have gained attention during the Duterte administration, but they point out na this has existed even before the Duterte administration. So the person asking is asking about the accusations on government using, I think the government in 2015, or the accusation was issued in 2015 that the government at that time was using confidential and intelligence funds to fund pro-government trolls. I think this is during the time of Aquino. And then the second question, also for you, Mikael, is on the issue of state-sponsored red tagging. How do we advocate for protection of non-politically aligned individuals? Um, you've been called out for red tagging and justifying the Kidapawan massacre in 2016 under the Aquino administration. So how do you justify that, or is there any response to that particular accusation?
Actually, pare, kaya tahimik ako, nagtatype ako ng mahabang sagot dyan eh. At sinagot
Hintayin natin yung mahabang sagot din.
babasahin ko na lang yung sagot. Doon sa pangalawang.
Sige.
Sa pangalawang.
Sige,
Sa
sige.
magkarugtong eh. Una, salamat sa tanong. Recitation na lang to ng sagot ko. No? I-preface ko muna na panahon ito kung kailan dapat talagang hanapin natin yung common ground dahil malaki yung kalaban. Ano? At bagaman ganitong uri ng mga tanong, yung nakasanayan ko nang ibinabato sa akin ng mga naiipit pa rin sa old paradigms of fragmentation and factionalism, game, sasagutin ko siya dahil tama nga naman na dapat laging lubluban yung difficult questions. Ang pinanggagalingan nito, may isa akong post dati right after it happened. Actually, birthday ko yung pare habang nangyayari yun. Nonood lang ako ng Popoy and Basha sa bahay, umiinom mag-isa. Tapos bigla pumutok itong pangyayari. So sabi ko dito sa sagot ko, ilang beses ko nang binalikan yung pinost ko about that back then. Iniisip ko kung may kasinungalingan ba akong sinabi. Totoong may drought, totoong may kakulangan ng government response, totoong may nagugutom, totoong may mga magsasaka na naghihintay ng ayuda. Bukod dito, malinaw din sa mga investigasyon na isa siyang agitate, organize, mobilize operation. Hindi rin maikakaila or matter of fact, na NPA anniversary a few days before that. At ibinyahe ang mga magsasaka mula sa ibang lugar para doon tipunin. Ang sentimiento ko noon, ibinala sa kanyon yung mga magsasaka. Yung same empathy na nararamdaman ng iba para sa kanila, yun din naman yung pinanggagalingan ko. Maaaring questionin nyo ng mga tao, pero totoong sentimiento ko yun, totoong yun yung pinanggagalingan ko noon. Ang nakita kong ginawa ko lang, kinetextualize ko yung mga pangyayari. Beyond the 3 words, beyond the hashtag. So ang sagot ko siguro, does speaking the truth need justification? Parang hindi. Wala namang agenda yung katotohanan eh. Minsan nga iniisip ko baka mas dapat itanong kung justified ba yung posts ni Thinking Pinoy sa akin about that, yung lipa-lipa ng death threat na natanggap ko, yung Facebook event na gulpihin sa Malacanang si Mikael ko, yung timbre sa akin na may na-detect silang information operations laban sa akin, mga bagay that had me taking different routes to work every morning. So ito mga bagay na to, di ba? Parang yun yung tingin ko tuon na angkop sa topic na pag-usapan din, ano? So ayun, it is what it is. In the same way na hindi naman fair discourse yung kukunin yung singular specimen of experience ng isang tao o ng isang institusyon, say yung aktibong pagsuporta ng ilang grupo kay Duterte noong 2016, hindi naman fair na kunin lang yon, tapos gamitin yon para invalidate ang lahat ng mga sinasabi niya o nila. Babalikan ko yung preface ko. Na panahon ngayon na kailangan nating makita yung alignment sa values, hopefully meron alignment sa aspirations natin para sa mga tao, at yun ang gawing simula ng usapan. Yun yung una. Yung pangalawa, ayun yung sa pangalawang tanong. Yung sa unang tanong regarding, wala akong alam na gano'n. Seryoso pare, parang red line sa amin yun. Red line talaga na hindi ka pwede magsinungaling. Pumapasok kami araw-araw noon minsan. Doon na kami sa opisina tutulog. Alam mo to, andun ka eh. Diba? One floor above lang kayo sa amin. At malinaw sa amin na parang kaya tayo nagpapagod ng ganito dahil mas mahirap mag-research ng tama, magsabi ng totoo, i-fact check lahat ng lalabas. Alam mo to, lumalabas sa bibig ng Pangulo noon hanggang sa decimal point pinapalagay sa mga material, sa mga communications instruments. At yung ginagawa namin noon, parang ako mismo, isa dun sa mga pinakamalaking, ako yung unang magagalit kapag nalaman ko may nag-engage ng disinformation dahil i-invalidate mo lahat ng paghihirap ng buong team ko eh. Isang buong opisina yun na, diba, trying to elevate public discourse. I think para sa amin lahat nun, para sa atin lahat nun, hanggang ngayon naman, advocate pa rin ako na isa dun sa mga pangunahing tungkulin talaga ng gobyerno is to elevate public discourse. Sinubok namin yun. Alam niyo lahat yung official gazette, alam niyo, diba, narinig niyo yung mga SONA, narinig niyo yung mga sinasabi ng yung government communications nun. At sa tingin ko naman parang kung may mali, 'di ba? Kung may mali doon, quick to correct kami. Gaya nung presentation ni Miko kanina, kung may mali si VP, quick to correct naman siya, quick to institute structures para hindi siya maulit at malinaw na hindi yun yung intent. You speak the truth as it comes in. Pero ayun, tungkol dun sa cyber trolls, parang hindi, ako mismo, wala akong karanasan noon. At kung nalaman ko, isa ako sa mga unang magsasabi. Hindi naman mataas yung position ko, ASIC lang ako nun. Pero isa ako sa unang magsasabi na, dude, sarado nyo yan, hindi tayo ganyan. So I can only speak from that experience.
Salamat, Miguel. Correction lang, nasa kabilang building kami, nasa Arlegui. Yung building na earthquake risk pala. Disclosure lang, I used to work in the presidential management staff for 2 years. Doon kami nagkakalala ni Kyle. Okay, thank you. Hindi pa natin napag-usapan talaga yung divisions within society. Like, does class have anything to do with it? Can we speak to each other and practice radical empathy or radical love if there are still these societal divisions that, are harder to get around in reality? Kasi may mga background tayo, depende sa pinag-aralan mo, depende kung may pera ka or walang kaya, or depende kung saan ka galing, probinsya ka ba or galing sa syudad. Just your thoughts on that. Does that have any dimensions in how we're attacking disinformation?
Una ba ako?
Sige, go ahead.
Ladies first kaya muna, Ma'am Miko. Para isip.
Sige, Miko. Ikaw daw muna.
Okay. I think it may also be a factor kasi class will, marami kasi siyang determinants din like ano ba yung, of course our backgrounds will also guide the way we consume information, what kind of resources that we're aware of, what kind of content yung, and it's the same thing siguro sa even on social media, like what we see on our pages, etc. Doon pa lang tayo sa pag-access ng information, pag-access ng tools that would allow us to search further. For example, halimbawa, a person who only uses a free data plan will only have access to Facebook kasi yun lang yung libre dun sa plan niya. So, a person who only has that versus a person who has a plan na will allow you to access Google or other websites, meron dong additional, yung disincentive mo ba to look further, to research more, and also yung question then of whether bakit ko ba siya pag-aaksayahan ng oras kung mas meron akong pressing issues na kailangan tignan. But one thing that I think should be one thing that an intervention na dapat nandyan is kailangan talagang mas robust yung efforts natin to reach more people and discuss media literacy, the importance of what disinformation does to you. Like, kasi everyone is vulnerable to this. Anyone can be a victim to disinformation no matter what class you are, no matter where you are, no matter ano yung background mo. It really affects all of us. So, people who are in a more disadvantaged position, dapat mas may extra effort from, I don't know, organizations like what we're doing here, to reach out to those people who don't have access to what people who has more resources can do. So I guess that's my take on it.
Thank you. Sige, Kael?
Dun sa tanong na may effect ba yun? Definitely, pare. Definitely. Sa tingin ko, isa yun sa mga pinakamalaking ugat. In fact, yung disaffection, anxiety, fear, frustration na na-create ng social inequalities, yun mismo yung tinatap ng populist authoritarian demagogues. Doon sila nanggagaling, doon sa kahihiyan na naidudulot ng kahirapan, kahihiyan na naidudulot ng hindi pagkakaroon ng, di ba, ng mga gamit na meron yung ibang tao, ng mga opportunities na meron yung mga tao. And sinagot ko na rin kanina, titigil lang ako sumagot by typing, i-verbal ko na lang para lagi akong nakatutok dito. Anyway, sinagot ko na kanina na oo, definitely, pinanggagalingan yon. Pero siguro hindi siya dapat ituring na bullian na parang, polarizing society, tapos, di ba? Parang, ano siya eh, to a certain degree, it is polarized, but to a certain degree, there are open channels for discourse palagi. And open methods and processes. Talagang yun mismo nga yung inaatake nitong disinformation operators na to eh. And I think, to wear my literary hat, isa dun sa mga paraan para maghanap ng commonality, simple lang, wika eh. Tagalog ka, Pilipino ka, kung asa CDO ako ngayon. Bisaya ka, kung marunong ka magbisaya dun sa kapaligid mo, kausapin mo sila bilang tao. At hindi dahil iisang bansa ito, iisang lived experience, unless talagang totally isolated ka na privileged and everything na hindi ka talaga cloistered ka, hindi ka lumalabas. At merong mga bagay na common sa iyo sa kahit sinong kapwa Pilipino. Yun yung gumagawa ng bansa eh. Ganong klaseng plurality yung bansa eh. At kung walang ganon, nasa sayo para mag-create ng ganong mga bagay. Lumabas ka, kumain kang isaw, makipagkwentuhan ka, maramdaman mo kung gaano kahirap maglakad sa kalyeng walang ilaw di ba? Sa tabi ng estero ng alas 11 ng madaling ng gabi. Itong mga bagay na to, 'di ba? Parang yung ganong klaseng lived experience, yung pinanggagalingan, yung ganong klaseng common lived experience, yung primary impetus ng kahit anong diskurso eh. And yun naman yung thesis ko kanina pa, 'di ba? Parang diskurso siya, usap na nanggagaling sa espasyo ng commonality, hindi debate lagi, hindi mas magaling ako sa iyo, hindi mas tama ako sa iyo, hindi mas tama yung ideolohiya or whatever. Hanapin yung shared aspirations, shared lived experiences, at doon magsimula. At hindi siya masosolve ng 'di ba? Parang bukas wala nang inequality dahil nag-usap tayo. Hindi ko sinasabing gano'n. Pero laging yun yung lunsaran ng anumang hakbang. Kung gusto mo na mag-consolidate at mag-organize at maging mas marami kayong humahakbang, laging doon nang gagaling. Naupo tayo, usap tayo, ano ba yung pinagsasaluhan nating karanasan? And I think yun yung sagot ko doon sa tanong na yan.
Ang problema lang pare, may pandemya. So, kung wala lang COVID-19, mas possible, no? Actually, nakakatakot lang yun eh. Di ba? Kasi malapit na elections, di ba?
Singit ko lang. Pare, isang bagay na ano yun. Isang bagay na parang makes us realize na, grabe, parang walang pinipili. Hindi mamimili kung anong gaano katibay yung pinto.
Bagay.
Hindi ka pipiliin kung gaano karami yung laman ng wallet mo. So ito, common lived experience yan. Lahat tayo, sa bahay. Oh. Yung pa lang, di ba? Pag-usapan yan. Makikita kahit asang ka, kahit gaano kalaking social inequality na yun, may pathway para sa ganong klaseng diskurso. At nakikita nga natin minsan, madalas nangyayari, may mga tao, may mga institusyon na pinipilit gawin, buksan uli yung pathway ng discourse na yun.
So hopefully we come out of this more united, at least more empathic with each other, no? Shift gears lang muna tayo. What is your, I want to get your take on the social media platforms. Kasi sayang nga wala nga dito si Janina, but nabanggit mo kanina kaya na baka they're in over their heads. Do you think the platforms like Facebook or even Twitter, the ones that are less known, or even Instagram, yung mga entertainment type platforms like TikTok, are doing enough? Or what can they do more? Kasi nabanggit ng isang commenter, recently nag-take down ng Facebook ng mga inauthentic pages that were supportive of President Duterte na parang galing daw sa China at supportive na ng either connected sa in some way or another the military institutions. Pero alam din natin na nagte-take down sila ng mga Facebook pages ng people who might be against President Duterte or might be against the ideology of the government at the time, di ba? So, your take on what the platforms are doing. Should they be doing more?
Una, agree ako doon sa pagte-take down ng coordinated inauthentic behavior. Agree ako na yun yung paraan na hindi tawag dyan, information agnostic yung term na ginagamit. Information agnostic dapat yung atake. Dahil, ito yung batayang filosofiya niyan, dahil hindi mo dapat ibigay sa kahit sinong individual, institusyon o entity yung kapangyarihang mag-determine kung anong totoo o hindi. Binubuo yun ng isang lipunan, di ba? Ng lived experience natin pare-pareho. Para ibigay sa Facebook, para sabihin ni Facebook na fake news yan, tanggalin yan. Agree din ako sa kanila, hindi dapat. Nakikita ko at magandang unang hakbang yung pag-take down ng coordinated inauthentic behavior. Yung architecture mismo ng disinformation. Sa kabilang banda though, hindi siya ganun ka-scalable eh. Sa sobrang dami nung gumagawa niyan, sila mismo, alam mo, hirap sila eh. And the only thing na magtatama dyan sa ugat, and ito yung personal stand ko talaga dyan, ang magtatama niyan sa ugat nito, na hindi nila gagawin dahil aatakihin yung kanilang profit, yung kanilang monetization model, really is platform reform. Kasi yung katotohanan, lilitaw at lilitaw siya sa isang fair marketplace of ideas. Kasi katotohanan lang naman yung pwedeng mag-undergo ng scrutiny. Di ba? Pag pinagdiskursuhan na yan, alam natin kung ano yung totoo o hindi. Hindi nga fair yung marketplace nila dahil may algorithmic bias eh. So paano gagawin yung reform na yun? Kung hindi nyo kaya, kung ayaw ninyo, at least be transparent about it. Subject it to public scrutiny just like, 'di ba? Just like everyone na merong, 'di ba, mistake sa public parang highway ba? 'Di ba? Subject it to public scrutiny yan eh. May transparency diyan sa mga kontratang yan eh. Eto tago. So sa tingin ko may ganun dapat push. At sa totoo, may push ng ganun towards algorithm transparency. At ang kailangan siguro gawin ay policy level na to at yung mga policy wonk dito siguro na inaaral siya. Iniisip na rin yung mga ganitong hakbang. But of course, syempre, Facebook yan pare. Laki yan. Lakas niyan. Ano ba tayo? So, di ba? So, yun yung hakbang na nakikita ko. Bukod dun sa pag-take down ng architecture of disinformation, bukod dun sa pag-take down ng coordinated inauthentic behavior.
Okay, thank you. Nico, bilang journalist?
Yeah, I agree then with what Facebook recently did with taking down these coordinated inauthentic behaviors. Siguro one thing that's interesting then to share like how the partnership with Facebook happens in the third-party fact-checking program. Like for example, with Verifiles as a third-party fact-checking partner, we are not the ones who take down posts. We don't block any users. What happens is kapag meron kaming viral posts that we check on the platform, Facebook lowers yung visibility ng post na yon by around at least I think 60%. So it's viewed less by people who go on the platform. I think one thing that we have been pushing for is we want them to be more transparent in terms of ano ba yung impact that we're creating as third party fact checkers within the platform. Like if we have access to those to that data, we can have it would help us with our work more, like what kind of it would inform us like anong klaseng posts ba yung would it tends to go viral more, like how far are we reaching, does the kind of work that we do really have impact on the reader, on the user level. So I think having access to more data, that back end data would be good for us bilang for fact checkers, independent fact checkers on their platform.
Great, thank you. Our last question before we close is a two-part question, and I hope all of you can answer. And even the reactors, if you want to chime in, please come and unmute. No, I guess this is the assumption na lahat tayo dito ay against disinformation. I'm not sure kung may mga tao dito na nanonood na pro disinformation, pero assuming na lahat tayo dito ay against disinformation at assuming medyo allied ng konti, what is the most pressing form of this disinformation that the broad opposition to the government in this particular question is asking? What is the disinformation that the broad opposition to the government is facing, to the current government is facing? How do we address that? But I think this is the more important question of how do we consolidate our forces, our efforts, so that we can all fight disinformation, instead of being scattered or disaligned. Because if we're facing organized troll farms or organized entities, whether state or non-state actors, what is it a question of eye for an eye, fighting fire with fire, or is there another way we can do it that's organized as well? So if you want to answer the first question, assuming na you have advice for the opposition or the current opposition, pwede, but more so the second question. No? Miko, you want to go first?
Yeah. Siguro to answer the second question, no. From the perspective of a fact checker, even us, we're not saying that fact checking is the end all be all solution to disinformation. It's just one of the many factors that should be in play in order for us to not fall victims to the evils of disinformation. Multi-sectoral approach dapat siya, and we need participation from different people. For instance, in education, like what was initially said kanina, we need more media literacy institutionalized in our curriculum. We need more workshops to reach out to far-flung communities who may not have as much access to these kinds of resources. And because these kinds of initiatives would allow young people to understand better how information is packaged, shared, or what's the intention behind them. So I think this is a crucial part to our fight against disinformation. And that's also one of the reasons why Verifiles engages in a lot of these kinds of trainings. And I think this is one opening for us as youth leaders, civil society organizations to look into. Apart from that, yeah, I think that's one of the things that I want to leave everyone. Na it takes really a lot. It's not just from the lines of journalists or fact checkers. It would really need to involve people from different sectors.
Ako naman, well, sa akin malinaw na malinaw kasi na bahagi ako ng isang partido at talagang naniniwala ako, advokasya ko rin siya, yung malakas na party system para sa akin. And philosophically, it's the idea of banding together with people who share your values, who share your aspirations, who share the way you approach things. At itong mga bagay na to, syempre wala namang perpektong institusyon o grupo. Kung hindi mo magagawa sa pagsali sa partido, humanap ng ibang organisasyon katulad ng DAKILA, Active Vista, hanapin mo yung sektor mo, hanapin mo yung mga like-minded individuals, magsama-sama kayo. At planuhin yung mga dapat gawin. And I think yung ganung pag-oorganisa, ang nakikita natin dito sa mga buwan ng pandemya, ang dami biglang naglitawan ng ganung mga grupo. Kung chatroom man yan, barkadahan, or even mga families na nag-uusap-usap, how to be more politically engaged. At yun yung susunod siguro na hakbang. I think isa dun sa mga pinakamahalagang kayang gawin ng isang organisadong grupo ay yung pumasok dun sa mga espasyo na hindi kadalasan o hindi traditionally nag-e-engage sa political discourse at inormalize uli ang political discourse sa mga espasyong yun. Tindahan ng malunggay sa Facebook, tindahan ng gitara, Eraserheads Fans Club, di ba, Krav Maga Philippines. Kung pwedeng doon kayo mag-usap, kung saan makikita ng mga tao na, uy, pwede palang mag-usap-usap dahil meron na tayong shared experience sa pinanggagalingan, pwede pala natin pag-usapan uli yung political discourse ng hindi nagbabakbakan, nagbabangayan. Kung maibalik doon yung lipunan, malaking hakbang na para mabawi yung ground na nawala dahil sa disinformation.
Right, thank you. On that note, maraming salamat, Mikael, Miko, of course, earlier si John and si Janina, at our reactors, si Joven, Ronan, and Pauline, for your insightful session today. I mean, discussion today. And I think we really learned a lot. But more importantly, I think meron na tayong pwedeng pinagmulan, no, to actually get the discussion going, transfer this learning to your own small circles, and grow that circle of influence against disinformation. No? I'd like to thank, of course, FNF, Activista, Dakila, and Fight for organizing this forum, and to all the participants and audience members for asking your questions. So